Namaskar, myself Dr. Arvind Kumar Sharma. Today I will try to teach you zoology in very simple language so that each and every one of you can understand the things in a very easy way. The entire world, if we try to divide it into two parts, then we can clearly divide it into living and non-living part. If we see the list of non-living things, there is a huge list, very long list. Whatever we see apart from plant and animals, it's all non-living. In the living part, there are only two things, plants and animals. And between this living and non-living, there is another group of individuals, we call it as virus. And what virus is, how dangerous virus is, what virus can do, the world has seen, the entire world, and we all have seen it in the last year. How the COVID-19 affected the entire world. The entire world came to a standstill. No flights, no cars, no transport, no movement, and everyone was locked in the four walls of the houses. So that's a very, very important group, but here we are not much concerned with it. We are concerned with the living part, and in that living also, we are mainly concerned with the animals. So, the world of animals is also very huge and very large. So, the entire living organisms, they are divided into two broad kingdoms, the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. Now, here, today, we are concerned because I am a student of zoology, I am a teacher of zoology, so we are concerned with the animal kingdom. मनुष्य जाति हम लोग इसी कॉर्डेटा फाइलम में आते हैं. एनिमल किंगडम में बहुत सारे फाइला हैं और जिसमें से एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फाइलम जो है वो कॉर्डेटा है. There are about approximately 30 animal phyla in the entire animal kingdom. Singular is known as phylum. Plural is known as phyla. Singular is known as phylum. The last major group of the animal kingdom is known as phylum Caudata. And this phylum Caudata, it was created by Welfer in 1880. Now this word Chordata had its origin in the Greek language. And if you see, there are two parts in it. One is chorda and another is eta. Now word chorda means string or cord, कोई रस्सी नुमा structure, and eta means bearing. So very simply we can say that chordates are the animals having a cord. And this cord, specifically in zoology, we call it as Notochord, which is one of the fundamental characters of the phylum Chordata. When we will come to study the fundamental chordate characters, then we will discuss about this Notochord. Now the total number of species, or more precisely, the total number of chordate species is 49,000. It is a very small group, though if we compare these species, number of species with the non-chordates or invertebrates, then we find it is a very small figure, because the invertebrates, arthropods, insects, we have got large number of animal species, whereas the total number of chordate species is just 49,000. Out of this, This chordata again is subdivided into two subphyla. So if we merge Urochordata and Cephalochordata, the total number of species in these two subphyla is 2500 species. And the subphylum vertebrate, it includes about 46,500 species. And both comprising all these subphyla together, it comes to 49,000 species. Now of this, the fishes, in fishes we have got about 25,000 species. If we see the number of species and compare the different subphyla, then we see the fishes comprises of the largest number. It is about 25,000, which is very well written over here. Similarly, in amphibia, we have got just 2,500 species. Similarly, in reptiles, there are about 6,000 species. In the birds, there are about 9,000 species. And the mammals, we have only having with 4,500 species. So, with these figures, you can see the different number of species in different subphyla of the phylum Chordata. Now, the biggest known animal on this planet Earth is the gigantic blue whale. Most of you might be aware of that. Scientifically, we call it as Balaenoptera musculus. It is the largest animal species today present on the earth, and it can grow up to 35 meters. Now you can imagine that how much 35 meters is. So it is in length, it goes up to 35 meters. The second biggest vertebrate species is the whale shark, which we call it as Rhinodontipus. And similarly, the smallest fish from this vertebrate subphylum vertebrata is Philippine goby, which is scientifically or zoologically we call it as Pandaka. And this blue shark, it can grow up to 15 meters in length. And this Pandaka, it is just 10 millimeter long. Now, after having discussed about chordates, now we come to the three fundamental chordate characters. The chordates, they have got three fundamental characters which are not present in the other group of animals or in the other phylum of the animal kingdom. Now, the first and the foremost character is a dorsal, hollow or tubular nerve cord. Number two is a longitudinal supporting rod-like structure called notochord. And number three, a series of pharyngeal gill slits. Now here I have drawn a typical diagram of a chordate in which you can see all the three fundamental chordate characters. This is the typical diagram of a chordate animal, in which you can see on the top is the dorsal hollow nerve cord. It is present on the top just above the notochord. And just below this dorsal hollow nerve cord, you can see notochord is present. So the notochord is present in between the digestive tract and the nerve cord. The nerve cord is on the top, below it is nerve cord, and below the nerve cord is the digestive tract. You can see the mouth at the anterior end and anus at the posterior end. Now in the region of the pharynx, you can see there are so many openings, which is a pair of openings, and these openings are called as pharyngeal gill slits. And so this is the typical diagram of an chordate. Now, one thing more I want to make it very clear, that all these three structures the presence of these three structures either in the adult stage or during the course of development, if all these structures are present, then we call that animal as chordate. Now in the present world, most of the animals or most of the chordates we see, they does not possess any of these characters in the adult stage. Meaning thereby that all these three fundamental chordate characters, they pass these stages during the course of development. There is one single animal which shows the presence of these characters even in the adult stage, and that animal is Branchiostoma. In the old books you will find the name Amphioxus, and this is why this Branchiostoma or Amphioxus is included in the study of the undergraduate classes, so that we can understand the three fundamental chordate characters. Now, if you see the nerve cord or neural tube, the nerve cord is also known as neural tube. It is derived from the neural plate of the embryo and encloses a cavity called neurocele. Now here you can see here, this is the section of the nerve cord. You can see on the top is the fibrous sheath, and in between lies the nerve cord, and this cavity which is there, this cavity is known as neurocele. So this is the typical structure of the nerve cord. Similarly, the notochord, it is not hollow. You will find in the case of notochord, one thing more I forgot to tell you about the nerve cord is that in the higher chordate, in the higher vertebrates, or in most of the chordates in the present world, this nerve cord undergoes a process called known as cephalization, in which the anterior part of this animal, it becomes the brain, and the lateral part is known as the spinal cord. So the nerve cord, which is the fundamental chordate character and is found in all the chordates, they pass this stage during the course of development, and when they reach the adult, the nerve cord, it undergoes a process called cephalization, forming the brain in the anterior end and spinal cord in the posterior end, and finally it gives rise to the nervous system. Then if we see the notochord, it is, as I told you earlier, it is present just beneath the nerve cord, and the notochord, it originates from the endodermal roof of the embryonic archenteron in the course of development. Now here you can see the structure or the section of the notochord, where you can see there is a outer layer of fibrous notochord sheath, then there is a elastica interna, and in the inner side you can see the notochordal cells. So the notochord is composed of large vacuolated notochordal cells. The protochordates have typical notochord. The cephalochordata and the urochordata, these are the subphyla of the chordates, and they show the presence of typical notochord even in the adult stage. Now finally, we come to the series of pharyngeal gill slits. Now you can see here in the region of the pharynx, you can see there are so many openings, and these are called as pharyngeal gill slits. Now the role of this pharyngeal gill slits is that since these animals are aquatic animals, so when the water, it goes inside through the mouth, then it comes out through these openings to the outside, and thereby it moistens the gills, and the process of respiration takes place. Now along with the process of water going through the mouth and coming out from the gill slits, one more thing happens. The food particles also goes inside, the water comes out, and the food particles get settled down. So in this way, the pharyngeal gill slits, apart from the process of respiration, they also aid in the process of nutrition to the animal. Now these paired series, a series of paired lateral gill slits or gill clefts, they perforate through the pharyngeal wall of the gut behind the mouth, and they are variously termed in different books. You will sometime they are also known as pharyngeal gill slits, sometimes laryngeal gill slits, sometimes visceral gill slits, or sometimes they are called as clefts, sometimes they are called as pouches. So it is one and more thing, one and the same thing. In protochordates, especially branchiostoma or amphioxus, and lower aquatic vertebrates, the gill slits are functional throughout the life. As I told you that the branchiostoma or the amphioxus, it is the very good example where you can find all these three fundamental characters even in the adult stage. Otherwise, in rest of the chordates, these three fundamental chordate characters, they pass during the course of development, and in the adults we are not able to see these characters as such. In the higher vertebrates, they disappear and become modified. Like when the animal becomes terrestrial or aerial, then these pharyngeal gills, they have not role to play and they get modified into the lungs. Similarly, the nerve cord is modified into brain and the spinal cord. The notochord gets modified into the vertebral column, and the pharyngeal gill slits, they finally become gills in the fishes, and in the vertebrates on the land animals, they are modified and they become and they get modified into lungs, because the terrestrial animals have a pulmonary type of respiration. So in the last, I again tell you that always remember, though the nerve cord, notochord and the pharyngeal gill slits, these are the three fundamental chordate characters, but in most of the animals, in most of the chordates, all these stages are passed during the course of development, and this animal branchiostoma and or amphioxus is the unique or the beautiful example where we can see all these stages even in the adult stage. Thank you.